All right, so you're getting ready for a Firework Assembler interview, huh? That's pretty cool. We've got the career guide and interview guide here from RoleCatcher,
No.
and we are going to make sure you totally crush this interview.
Yeah, these guides are really awesome. We're going to break down the questions, give you some pro tips, and even show you how RoleCatcher's AI can help you get your answers just right.
Okay, so first things first, what does a Firework Assembler actually do? It can't be as simple as just sticking a fuse in a tube, right? The career guide dives into this in the what they do section.
Oh, it is way more than that. Think blueprints, chemical compositions, precision assembly. It's like art meets engineering. You're building these amazing displays that light up the sky.
Wow. So there's a creative side to it, too.
It's interesting.
It's not all about just following steps. It's understanding how everything works together to make that final effect. I bet that comes up in the interview.
You bet. It does. The interview guide actually highlights this question. What inspired you to pursue this career? Now, don't just say, I like fireworks. Give them something with a little more bang. Think about what really got you interested. Was it a specific show that just blew you away? A fascination with the science behind it? Tap into that passion and let it shine.
Makes sense. They want to see that you're not just filling a spot. You're genuinely excited about the field.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of sparks flying, let's talk about safety. The career guide's work environment section and the interview guide both talk about how important this is.
No surprise there.
Right.
You're dealing with explosives. Safety is number one. When they ask about it, don't just list off procedures. Show them you really know your stuff. The career guide's pros and cons section lists out some risks: accidental ignition, chemical burns, all great things to talk about.
Okay, so instead of just saying, I wear safety goggles, I could say, I know how dangerous accidental ignition can be, so I always double-check my connections and make sure the area is clear before I touch anything that could ignite. Like that.
Exactly. You're showing them you understand the why behind the rules, not just the rules themselves. And the interview guide has a great follow-up question. Can you describe a time you had to deal with a safety concern? This is where you can really shine.
Got it. So instead of just saying, I follow procedures, I can share a story about a time I spotted a potential hazard, how I figured out what was going on, and the steps I took to stop an accident from happening.
You got it. That shows you're thinking ahead, which is a huge plus in this job.
Okay, the interview guide also asks about experience with hand tools and machinery. What's the best way to answer that?
Don't just list tools. The career guide goes into detail about different firework parts, like stars, shells, fuses. Connect your tool experience to those. For example, instead of saying, I've used a rammer, you could say, I've used a rammer to precisely pack lift charges into mortar shells so that all the fireworks launch at the same height for a synchronized display.
Oh, that's way better. It shows I get how the tools I use affect the final product and how it all comes together to create the effect I'm going for.
Right. And speaking of effects, the interview guide asks, can you describe a difficult situation you faced while assembling fireworks and how you resolved it? This is where RoleCatcher's AI can really come in handy.
Really? How so?
Well, you can put your answer into RoleCatcher, and it'll analyze it based on the specific job you're going for. Let's say they're looking for someone who's great at problem solving and has a real attention to detail. The AI will tell you if your answer shows off those skills.
So it's like having an interview expert giving me feedback and helping me fine-tune my answers. That's super helpful, especially for those tricky questions where you have to tell a story.
Exactly. It helps you tailor your answers to what each employer is looking for.
Okay, so back to that tricky question. What kind of difficult situation should I even talk about? I mean, hopefully I haven't caused any explosions yet.
No explosions necessary. Think about a time you had to troubleshoot something. Maybe a batch of stars weren't burning the right color, or a fuse wasn't lighting properly.
Oh, yeah. I remember one time the timing was off for a sequence. We had to adjust the fuse lengths by tiny amounts to get this cascading effect to work just right.
Perfect. Walk them through that.
Yeah.
How did you figure out what the problem was? What did you do to fix it? Did you talk to your team or look at any manuals? And most importantly, how did you make sure the final product was safe and looked amazing?
Got it. It's all about showing off my problem-solving skills and attention to detail, especially when it comes to safety.
Exactly. Now, another question they love to ask is, how do you handle tight deadlines? That's a big one in this field.
Definitely. Fireworks are usually for specific events, so I imagine there's a lot of pressure to get everything done on time. The career guide talks about how important organization and time management are.
Right. Think about a time you had to juggle a bunch of tasks to meet a deadline. Maybe you were working on different firework parts at the same time, each with its own challenges. How did you decide what to focus on first? What strategies did you use to stay organized and on track?
And I'd want to mention that I can work well under pressure and stay calm and efficient, even when things are getting down to the wire.
Exactly. Those are valuable skills. And remember, you can use RoleCatcher's AI to practice your answers and get feedback on how to present yourself as someone who can handle the heat.
This tool is seriously amazing. It's not just about knowing the answers, it's about presenting them in a way that really clicks with the employer and shows off what I can do.
You got it. It's about tailoring your message. Now let's move on to another question that's all about experience. Have you ever had to deviate from a blueprint or design, and why?
That's interesting. I bet there are times when you need to think on your feet, especially if you're working on a custom display. The career guide mentions how important it is to be flexible and adaptable as a firework assembler.
Right. Think about a time when something unexpected happened during assembly. Maybe a part wasn't available, or the design had to be changed because of where the show was happening. How did you handle it? Did you talk to the designer? Did you come up with a creative solution that still made the display look amazing, but also fix the problem?
I definitely want to mention that I can think critically and make smart decisions under pressure, especially when safety is involved.
Absolutely. This question is all about showing off how good you are at solving problems and how you can adapt to changes.
I'm seeing a pattern here. It's not just about what I've done, it's about how I think and how I handle tough situations.
Exactly. Employers want people who are not only skilled, but also resourceful, adaptable, and super serious about safety. And those are all qualities you can show off in your answers.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot already.
We have, and we're just getting started. We'll dive into even more interview questions and tips in the next part of our deep dive. So let's get back to those interview questions. The interview guide really stresses how important experience is, especially for a job like this.
Yeah, I'm looking at the career guide right now. In the Firework Assembler career stages section, it talks about how your responsibilities change as you move up from entry level to senior assembler. That's really helpful to know when I'm answering questions about my experience.
Definitely. One question you might get is, how do you make sure the fireworks you assemble are high quality? Don't just say you follow instructions. This is your chance to show how detail-oriented you are.
Okay, so I could talk about how I carefully inspect every single part I'm using, like checking for cracks, making sure the weight is right, and even double-checking what the chemical mixtures are made of.
Exactly. The career guide talks about different kinds of firework shells, like spherical and cylindrical. You can even mention those. Explain how you make sure each type is put together correctly and strong enough.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Showing I know about the different types of fireworks proves I have a deeper understanding.
Right. It's those details that make you stand out. Now, another question might be, can you describe a time when you had to work with your team to finish a project? Teamwork is huge in this field, especially when you're putting on a big show.
Now that you mention it, I remember this one time we were putting together this really complex finale piece with a bunch of different firing sequences. It took a ton of coordination and communication between everyone on the team.
Perfect example. Tell them about it. How did you split up the work? What did you do to make sure everyone was on the same page? Were there any disagreements, and how did you work them out?
So it's about showing that I can collaborate, communicate clearly, and be a good team player.
You got it. Teamwork questions are all about those people skills, which are just as important as your technical skills in this job. Now let's talk about a question that sometimes throws people off. How do you stay up to date on new stuff in the firework industry?
This is where I get to nerd out, right? I mean, the technology is always changing. The career guide even mentions computerized firing systems and 3D modeling for designing displays. I've been looking into those.
That's awesome. Tell them about it. Mention any magazines you read, conferences, you go to online forums where you chat with other firework people.
Oh, and I can talk about some of the new pyrotechnic compounds I've been researching. There's so much cool stuff happening with making new colors and effects.
Perfect. That shows you love what you do and you're always trying to learn more. Employers love to see that. Now, we talked about RoleCatcher's AI for those storytelling questions, but can it help with more technical ones too?
Yeah, I was wondering that.
For sure. You can put in your answers to questions about your experience, new technology, even safety procedures. The AI will look it over and see if you're using the right keywords or ideas based on the job description.
So, like, if they're looking for someone who knows about computerized firing systems, the AI will tell me if my answer really covers that.
Exactly. And make sure your answers match what they're looking for, so you make a great first impression.
Okay, let's talk about a question that can be a little awkward. What are your salary expectations?
Yeah, that one always makes me nervous. It doesn't have to. Do your research first. The career guide gives you a general salary range for firework assemblers. But you can also use websites like Glassdoor or salary.com to get a better idea. based on where you live and how much experience you have.
So I should have a range in mind, but also be ready to explain why I'm worth that much based on my skills and experience.
Exactly. Be confident, be realistic,
Yeah.
and be ready to negotiate a little. Okay. Now, the interview guide also mentions a question about customer specifications. How do you make sure the fireworks you assemble meet what the customer wants?
Interesting.
This is where your communication skills come in. You need to show that you get how important it is to work with the clients, understand their vision, and make that vision a reality.
Oh, I remember working on a display for a festival once, and the client was really specific about the colors and the timing of the fireworks. They wanted it to match the theme of the festival. We had to work closely with them, going over the plans and even doing some test runs to make sure we got it exactly right.
Perfect example. It shows you're not just an assembler. You're a problem solver, and you work hard to make your clients happy. Now, before we move on, I want to bring up something that caught my eye in the career guide. It mentions starting your own pyrotechnics company.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, while it might not be something you're thinking about right now, it's definitely something to keep in mind. And even if you don't want to start your own business, understanding that side of things shows initiative and dedication.
So if it comes up in the interview, I could maybe mention that I'm interested in the business side of pyrotechnics, highlighting my long-term goals.
Exactly. It shows you're not just looking for a job. You're looking for a career path with room to grow. Okay, now let's switch gears a bit and talk about a question they usually ask towards the end. Do you have any questions for us?
This is my chance to interview them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure I ask good questions. That show I'm really interested in. I've done my research.
Right, don't just ask the usual stuff. Use this opportunity to learn more about the company. What's it like to work there? How do they handle safety? How do they work with clients? Are there opportunities to learn and grow?
So instead of asking about vacation time, I could ask, what does the company do to create a culture of safety that goes beyond just following the rules?
Now you're talking. It shows you're thinking long term. And you want to work somewhere that takes safety seriously.
And I could ask about their commitment to innovation. Maybe something like, how is the company exploring new technologies and techniques for firework design and assembly?
Excellent questions. It shows you're curious and you want to be at the forefront of the industry. And remember those career stages we talked about? You could even bring those up. For example, you could ask about opportunities for professional development or mentorship.
So if I'm hoping to move into a leadership role someday, I could ask, what kind of leadership training or mentorship programs do you offer for employees who want to advance their careers within the company?
Perfect. It shows ambition.
Okay, now let's wrap up this part with a question that can be tough. What are your weaknesses?
Ooh, that one's always hard. I don't want to sound negative, but I also don't want to avoid the question.
The key is to be honest but smart. Choose a weakness that isn't crucial for a firework assembler, but something you're working on improving.
So I could say that sometimes I get so focused on the little details that I lose sight of the big picture. But I'm working on my time management skills and learning how to prioritize better.
Great example. It shows you know yourself, you're willing to learn, and you're always trying to get better. And remember, you can always practice this answer with RoleCatcher's AI to make sure you're presenting it in the best possible light.
Okay, I feel way more prepared to handle those tough interview questions now. What else do we have in store for our listeners?
We'll go over some final tips for acing that interview, talk about how to make a great impression, and leave you with some inspiring thoughts to take with you on your journey to becoming a firework assembler.
All right, so let's wrap this up with some final advice to help you really nail that interview.
Okay, I'm ready. I feel like we've already gone over a ton. From safety and technical stuff to those tricky questions about teamwork and your personality. What else is there?
Well, let's talk about making a lasting impression. You know, going beyond just answering the questions, right?
Yeah.
The interview guide touches on this.
Yeah, it mentions being enthusiastic and passionate. It even asks about asking insightful questions at the end.
Exactly. Remember, it's a two-way street. They're checking you out, but you're also checking them out. Asking thoughtful questions shows you're interested, and you get some good info about the company and the job.
Okay, so what kind of questions would really impress them?
Think deeper. Instead of asking about benefits or vacation time, dig into their safety practices. You could ask, what does your company do to build a culture of safety that goes beyond just meeting the basic rules?
Ooh, I like that. It shows that I'm serious about safety, and I want to work somewhere that values it.
Exactly. You could also ask about how they stay innovative. Maybe something like, what are some ways you're exploring new technologies or techniques in firework design and assembly?
That's a good one. It shows I'm curious and want to be on the cutting edge of the industry.
Now, remember those career stages we talked about? You can even tie those into your questions.
Oh yeah, So if I'm thinking about leadership roles in the future, I could ask something like, what kind of leadership training or mentorship programs do you have for employees who want to grow with the company?
Perfect. It shows ambition. Okay, now one last thing about RoleCatcher's AI. It's been super helpful throughout all this. Why is it so important for interview prep?
Yeah, really has.
It's like your secret weapon. It helps you tweak your answers for each specific job, so you're showing off the skills and experience that matter most to them. It's like having your own personal interview coach.
It's amazing how technology can really help people get a leg up in the job search.
It really is. And it's not just about getting any job. It's about finding the right one for you.
Hmm.
Remember, you're not just interviewing for a position, you're interviewing for a career that fits your passions and goals.
That's so true. It's about finding a place where you can really excel and use your talents.
Exactly. So when you walk into that interview, be confident, be yourself, and let your love for pyrotechnics shine through.
And don't forget to use all the amazing tools and resources out there, like RoleCatcher's AI and those awesome guides.
You got this. Go make some sparks fly.
That's all for our Firework Assembler interview. Prep, deep dive. We've covered a lot, from safety and technical skills to those tricky behavioral questions and how to make a great impression.
Remember, you're not just prepping for an interview, you're preparing for a career that's truly explosive. Good luck.
And to everyone listening, keep reaching for the stars. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.